Christmas is supposed to feel warm. That's what people say anyway. Warm lights glowing through frosted windows, cinnamon drifting through the house, laughter layered over old traditions. That deep, comforting sense that no matter how complicated life gets, there's at least one day a year where you belong somewhere. But for as long as I can remember, Christmas has always felt conditional, like warmth that could be pulled away the moment you stopped being useful. I didn't understand that when I was a kid. I only know it now, looking back with adult clarity and a therapist's vocabulary. Back then, I just thought something was wrong with me. My name is Evan. I'm 37 years old now, and I'm the oldest of three siblings. There's me, then my sister Lauren, 3 years younger, then our youngest brother Caleb, 8 years younger than me. If you asked my parents to describe us growing up, they'd say it like this. Lauren was spirited, Caleb was finding himself, and I was easy. That word followed me everywhere. You were such an easy child, Evan. We never had to worry about you. You understood. I learned early that understanding was my job. When Lauren screamed because the wrong cereal was poured into her bowl, I was told to ignore it. When Caleb broke a lamp playing inside, I was told to help clean it up. When Lauren cried because she didn't get the role she wanted in the school play, I was told to comfort her. Nobody ever asked who comforted me. And to be clear, it wasn't that my parents were monsters. That's the tricky part. They weren't cruel in obvious ways. They just redistributed attention unevenly and called it fairness. My mom Diane liked to say she was brutally honest, which was code for saying whatever crossed her mind and blaming your feelings if it hurt. My dad, Frank, was quieter, a man of sighs and long pauses. He believed conflict was solved by avoiding it until the other person gave up. Lauren learned quickly how to work both of them. She cried loudly enough for Mom. She sulked long enough for Dad. Caleb learned something else entirely. He learned that charm could erase consequences, and I learned to stay out of the way. By the time I was 10, I knew my role in the family system. I was the buffer. If Lauren was upset, I stepped in before Mom exploded. If Caleb messed up, I smoothed things over before Dad withdrew. If the house felt tense, I became quieter, smaller, easier. It wasn't forced on me directly. No one sat me down and said, Evan, you're responsible for everyone's emotional stability. It was implied, and kids are very good at learning what keeps the peace. One Christmas when I was 12, Lauren wanted a new bike, a very specific one, purple, with white tires. She didn't get it. She got a different bike instead. She screamed, threw wrapping paper, locked herself in her room. Christmas paused. My parents hovered outside her door for nearly an hour, whispering, negotiating, apologizing. I sat on the floor by the tree, my own gifts unopened. Finally, Dad sighed and looked at me. Evan, buddy, can you open yours later? Let's help your sister first. So I did. That became the pattern. Holidays didn't revolve around joy. They revolved around whoever needed the most managing. And that was never me. I left for college at 18, out of state, on scholarships, with part-time jobs stacked back to back. My parents hugged me at drop-off. Lauren cried, loudly, about missing me. Caleb barely looked up from his phone, and then I was gone. The calls slowed quickly. Lauren called when she needed help with papers or resumes. Caleb called when he needed money. My parents called when they wanted updates, not conversations. I realized something during my sophomore year. No one actually missed me. They missed what I did. I worked harder after that. Not to prove anything, but because effort was familiar. It was controllable. If I stayed busy enough, I didn't have to feel the gap. I studied computer science, built things, fixed things. Code made sense in ways people didn't. After graduation, I didn't move home. I moved west, Seattle, a city where no one knew my family name or my role, where I could just exist. I built a startup in my mid-20s, nothing flashy at first. Back-end systems, quiet infrastructure work, the kind of tech that keeps things running while other people take the spotlight. It grew, slowly, then fast. By the time I was 30, I was burned out and sitting across from an acquisition lawyer who slid numbers across the table that didn't feel real. I signed. And just like that, I had more money than anyone in my family ever imagined. I didn't tell them. Not because I wanted leverage, but because I knew what would happen. Lauren would see it as ours. Caleb would see it as available. My parents would see it as something to be redistributed for the sake of harmony. I wanted one thing in my life that was just mine. Lauren's life took a different shape. Marriage by 30, 2 kids, carefully curated social media presence. Every photo looked warm, intentional, like a lifestyle catalog. Neutral tones, seasonal decorations. Candid moments that required 3 retakes. She married Ryan, a man who smiled a lot and listened very little. He worked in finance, or real estate, or consulting. It changed depending on the year. They lived in a suburb where people waved without stopping. Lauren became the center of the family. The grandkids sealed it. Every holiday became about what's easiest with the kids, which always meant Lauren decided. I was invited, technically, but always as an afterthought. You're welcome to come if you want. We assumed you were busy. We didn't think you'd mind. I always minded. I just didn't say it. Last summer, I bought a mountain house near Aspen. Not a mansion, not a showpiece. A quiet place. Big windows, stone fireplace. Enough room to host without feeling crowded. For the first time in years, I felt something like hope. Maybe this could be neutral ground. Maybe this could reset things. In September, I emailed photos to the family group chat. I'd love to host Christmas here this year. I even wrote that line 3 times before sending it. No one responded. Not even a thumbs up. Weeks passed. In November, my mom mentioned casually over the phone, "Oh, Lauren's hosting this year. It just makes more sense with the kids." She said it like it was already settled, like my offer never existed. I didn't argue. I told myself I'd start a new tradition. Friends, snow, peace. I decorated the cabin anyway, just in case. By the time December rolled around, I had already made peace with the idea that I would be spending Christmas alone. Or at least that's what I told myself. There's a difference between accepting something and numbing yourself to it, but I didn't know how to tell the two apart yet. I'd spent my entire life rehearsing disappointment quietly, so I assumed this was just another version of that skill. I didn't bring up Christmas again. Not to my parents, not to Lauren, not even to Caleb. I waited to see if anyone would. They didn't. That silence said more than any argument ever could. December has a way of amplifying everything. Lights go up, music changes. People talk about plans in that casual way that assumes you're included somewhere, even if not here. At work, colleagues asked what I was doing for the holidays. Heading somewhere warm? Family trip? Big plans? I smiled and gave vague answers, keeping it low-key. Probably staying in. Nothing crazy. Each response shaved a little more off something inside me. The cabin was already decorated by the first week of December. I told myself it was for me, not for them. That I deserved a space that felt intentional, even if no one else ever sat in it. Still, every ornament I hung carried a quiet question with it. What if they changed their minds? I bought a tree taller than I needed, put lights in the windows that faced the mountain road, stocked the pantry with food meant for more people than one. And every time my phone buzzed, some stupid hopeful part of me wondered if this would be the message. It never was. The family group chat came alive the week before Christmas, not with invitations, with logistics. Lauren: "Kids are obsessed with Polar Express this year. Mom: "I'll bring the cinnamon rolls Christmas morning." Dad: "Let me know what time we're doing gifts." No one tagged me. No one asked if I was coming. No one even acknowledged that I existed. It felt deliberate. Not cruel in a loud way, but efficient. Like removing an extra chair from the table because it didn't fit the aesthetic. I stared at the chat longer than I should have. At one point I typed, "Hey, just checking. Are we all set for Christmas?" I didn't send it, because I already knew the answer. 2 days before Christmas, my mom called. My heart jumped before my brain could stop it. "Hi, Evan," she said brightly. "Just wanted to check in." Check in. Not invite, not ask, not clarify, just check in. "How are you?" she asked. "Fine," I said. "Busy." She launched into a story about Lauren's kids learning to bake cookies, about how messy it was, about how cute it was. Then she paused. "So, are you staying in Seattle this year?" There it was. A test disguised as a question. "Yeah," I said carefully. "That was the plan." "Well," she said, relief audible, "that's probably for the best. Traveling is so stressful, and with the kids..." She trailed off like I'd already agreed with her. I waited. She didn't say anything else. No, "You're welcome here." No, "We'll miss you." No, "Maybe next year." When we hung up, I sat on my couch staring at a blank TV screen for a long time. I realized something then. They weren't excluding me accidentally. They were avoiding the discomfort of acknowledging that they were. I mailed the kids their gifts early. Wrapped, labeled, thoughtful. A science kit for Milo, a storybook June had mentioned months ago. I didn't include a note. I didn't want to force sentiment where none existed. Lauren texted me when the package arrived. "Got the gifts. Thanks." Nothing else. No picture. No thank you from the kids. No acknowledgement beyond obligation. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself a lot of things that December. Christmas Eve was quiet. I made soup. Opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving. Watched the snow settle into something soft and untouched outside the cabin windows. I considered calling Caleb. Then I remembered all the times he'd disappeared when things got uncomfortable. I didn't call. I went to bed early, convinced that if I lowered my expectations far enough, they couldn't hurt me anymore. That was a lie. I woke up early out of habit. The cabin was silent except for the low hum of the heater and the occasional crack of wood in the fireplace. I made coffee and sat on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, watching the light change outside. For a few minutes, I felt okay, peaceful even. Then my phone buzzed. Instagram notification, tagged in a photo, from Lauren. The notification sat on my phone like a loaded weapon, tagged in a photo, from Lauren. At 8:17 a.m. For a moment, I didn't open it. I told myself it was probably nothing, a generic holiday post, a throwback photo, something I could scroll past and pretend hadn't landed directly in my chest. But curiosity has teeth, and dread has weight. I tapped the screen. The photo filled my display, bright and warm and perfectly framed. Christmas morning with the whole family. So blessed. That was the caption. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before my brain caught up with what my eyes were seeing. My parents were there. Lauren and Ryan, smiling wide, coffee mugs raised like a magazine ad. Caleb leaned against the arm of a couch, laughing mid-sentence. Milo and June sat cross-legged on the rug, tearing into wrapping paper. And behind them, my fireplace, my stone hearth, the faint crack in the mantel I'd noticed when I bought the place, the throw pillows I'd picked out because they reminded me of winter mornings. They weren't just together. They were in my cabin. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like my body had forgotten how gravity worked. I zoomed in. There was no doubt. The rug, the coffee table, The mug in my dad's hand. White ceramic with a chip on the rim from when I dropped it unloading groceries last month. I hadn't given anyone the door code. I hadn't mentioned tenants. I hadn't even told them I wouldn't be there. They didn't ask. They didn't tell. They just came. The shock didn't explode. It crept. Like cold water seeping into your boots, soaking through before you realize you're already numb. I scrolled. Photo after photo. Milo standing under my tree, holding a toy train I'd meant to donate after the holidays. June sitting on my couch, hot chocolate dripping dangerously close to the upholstery. My mom and Lauren baking cookies in my kitchen, sleeves rolled up like this had always been their space. Caleb holding one of my whiskey glasses, the limited edition set I only brought out for special occasions, making a cheers gesture toward the camera. Not a single photo of me, not a mention, not even a lie about why I wasn't there, just erased. My phone buzzed again as comments rolled in. So cozy. Family goals. Looks magical. Love this for you. I set the phone down slowly, like sudden movement might make everything worse. My chest felt tight, not with anger at first, but with something heavier. Humiliation. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd replaced me, and then they'd documented it for public consumption. I don't know how long I stood there staring at the fire. Minutes? An hour? The coffee went cold in my hands. Eventually the anger arrived, not loud, not explosive, controlled, focused. I picked up my phone again, opened the comments, and typed one sentence. Love this. Just FYI. The cabin you're in belongs to me. Tenants move in January 5th. I read it twice. Once for accuracy, once for tone. Then I hit send. That's how long it took. 3 minutes. The post vanished. No edit, no clarification, no apology. Just gone. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Calls stacked up so fast the screen couldn't keep up. Mom, Dad, Lauren, Caleb, Ryan, again, and again, and again. Texts followed. Lauren, why would you do that? Mom, Evan, please call me right now. Caleb, bro, what the hell was that? Ryan, can we talk privately? I flipped the phone face down and let it vibrate itself into silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to fix it. I didn't feel guilty. I felt awake. Later that afternoon, I listened. One by one. My mom's came first. Her voice was soft, almost sweet. Evan, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We thought you weren't coming, and Lauren said it was fine to use the cabin. You never said you were using it. Please don't overreact. Overreact. That word again. My dad's voicemail followed. This isn't how family handles things. We talk privately. You embarrassed everyone. Lauren's voicemail was longer and sharper. Oh my God, Evan. Seriously? You're going to ruin Christmas over this? The kids are upset. Milo cried. June asked why Uncle Evan was being mean. You blindsided us. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is incredibly selfish. Selfish. For reclaiming my own home. Caleb's voicemail was short. Man, chill. You weren't even coming. Nobody thought you cared. That one did it. That was the sentence that finally burned everything clean. I didn't call anyone back. I packed my things and left the cabin that night. The drive was quiet. Snow fell steadily, blurring the road into something abstract and distant. I thought about every time I'd swallowed frustration for the sake of peace. Every time I'd been told to understand. Every time I'd been assumed optional. By the time I got back to Seattle, I wasn't sad. I was done. The envelope was waiting in my mailbox. Certified mail, from a real estate agency. Confused, I tore it open in the hallway. Inside was a lease agreement, my address, my cabin. Tenant name, Lauren Reynolds. Lease term, 1 year. Start date, December 15th. My signature line was blank, but attached was a note from the agency. Thank you for finalizing the lease. We received the signed documents and key copies last week. Please let us know where to deposit rental income. My hands started shaking. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. Lauren hadn't just shown up. She'd impersonated me. She'd contacted the agency I'd casually mentioned months earlier. She'd signed paperwork in my name. She'd made keys. She'd handed out access. And she'd never intended to tell me. The Christmas gathering wasn't spontaneous. It was staged, and I was never meant to find out. The snow was still falling when I reached my apartment in Seattle. I put the lease on the kitchen counter and stared at it like it was a live wire. Lauren Reynolds, my cabin, signed documents. The sheer audacity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I called Rebecca, my real estate attorney, immediately. Rebecca picked up on the first ring. Evan? Her voice was calm, professional. I held up the lease to the camera during our video call. She did what? Rebecca asked, eyes widening as I explained. She forged my signature, gave the agency the door codes, handed out keys. They made my Christmas about themselves in my own house, and posted it on Instagram. Rebecca exhaled slowly. This is borderline fraud, definitely impersonation, and in writing. Did the agency actually wire any funds yet? No, thank God. But I clenched my jaw. This isn't just money. This is everything I've tried to keep private. My space, my home, my life. Rebecca nodded. We can stop this, but you need to decide how far you're willing to go. This could get messy. Ugly? I asked. Yeah, she said softly. Really ugly. Your sister might think it's a joke or a game. Your parents, well, they'll pick sides. But legally, you have control here. I didn't respond, because control is different than family approval. I knew I had to hear it from them. Mom called first. Her voice was syrupy, fake, fragile. Evan, honey, it's all a misunderstanding. Lauren thought it would be okay. She said you weren't coming. I never said you could use it, I said. Well, she thought. She submitted a lease in my name. She forged my signature. That's not a thought, that's a crime. A pause. Then she whispered, You're blowing this out of proportion. It's Christmas. That old guilt trick, sneaking in like smoke. Not this time. Not now. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. Sean, looking like he always does when he's trying to be charming but unsure of how much is too much. Hey, he said. We need to talk. I stepped aside, letting him in, but didn't offer a drink. Didn't sit. I didn't know about the lease, he said immediately. Lauren told me you were okay with the cabin being used. I swear. You didn't think it was weird that I wasn't there? I asked quietly. He shrugged. I figured you were doing your own thing solo. I didn't post, didn't call. Thought you'd cool off. You mean ignore my entire existence? He leaned forward. I know she crossed the line, Evan. But if you press charges or make this public, Mom's going to have a meltdown. Dad, too. You're going to nuke the family. I laughed bitterly. They already nuked it. I'm just catching up. Sean's charm faltered. So, what now? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not sweeping this under the rug. He nodded slowly, left without another word. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Lauren, you're being serious about this? You wouldn't actually ruin our family over a cabin. You've always had a flair for dramatics, but this is too far. Let it go. I stared at the message. Fingers hovered. Then I typed one sentence. I've let a lot go, Lauren, but not this. And that was it. No apology, no negotiation, just clarity. The following days were quiet. Not empty, but tense. No one called. No one texted. No one dared ask about the cabin. I watched from Seattle as my parents and Lauren tried to pretend nothing happened. A family brunch here. A casual Instagram post there. Always missing the point. Always missing me. I realized something important. This wasn't about a cabin. It was about boundaries, respect, and the simple fact that I had spent decades being optional. It was time to change that. I started by securing the cabin legally. I created a holding company, Havenwood Ventures, and transferred ownership there. All contracts, all utilities, all keys, everything routed through the LLC. Lauren and anyone else who tried to borrow it again would hit a wall. I also froze the shared family credit card, pulled myself off all emergency contacts, removed my name from shared streaming accounts. Everything that had kept me tethered to them quietly and invisibly was cut, and I didn't feel bad. I felt alive. That summer, I threw myself into work. The mentorship platform I'd been dreaming about quietly, Foundry, started taking shape. Not flashy, not viral, just meaningful. I mentored young entrepreneurs who had no connections, no family safety nets, no curated Instagram perfect lives. People like me, quiet builders, overlooked thinkers, the ones who were expected to understand everything while others got the applause. For the first time in years, I built something for me, not for approval. The summer heat in Seattle felt different that year. Not oppressive, not draining, but alive. I'd built walls around my space, around my life, and for the first time in decades, they weren't walls to keep others in. They were walls to keep me safe. And for the first time, I realized safety doesn't feel cold. It feels steady. By mid-September, Foundry was ready. The platform had quietly grown into something bigger than I'd imagined. Mentors from previous companies, angel investors who had quietly admired my discretion, students who needed guidance. They were all there. I had built this in silence, just as I had built my home, my life, and my boundaries. No one in my family had a clue. The tipping point came when a nonprofit I'd worked with approached me. Small business grants for single parents, underfunded communities, young entrepreneurs with nowhere to go. Lauren's name was on the board. She had been there for years, her social media persona shining as the family advocate and community hero. She didn't know I was involved. I did my homework quietly, offered to consult, to restructure, to help. No fanfare, no spotlight, just action. Over the next 6 weeks, I worked behind the scenes. Budgets reorganized, workflows optimized, virtual workshops held, attended by more people than any donor dinner they'd ever hosted. I didn't announce my involvement to Lauren or anyone on the board. I didn't need applause. I just needed results. The gala came, the big event. Open bar, silent auction, fancy venue. Lauren was there, glowing in her curated elegance, unaware of who had orchestrated most of the night's success. I didn't RSVP. Instead, I sponsored it anonymously, every detail, every logistical nightmare handled quietly. The donor appreciation video played, footage of the young entrepreneurs, their first clients, their first products, their first victories. Stories narrated by me, calm, grounded, proud, but not boastful. At the very end, a black screen. White text. This event was made possible by a silent supporter, someone who believes in second chances, even when the world only remembers the first mistake. The room went quiet. Lauren clapped politely. Her face, Dana later told me, turned to stone. 2 days later, she resigned from the board. No explanation, no Instagram post, just gone. It wasn't about revenge. It never was. It was about reclaiming my space, reclaiming my life, reclaiming myself from a family who had long treated me as optional. Sean reached out again in November. Can we talk sometime? Just us? I replied. I'm not happy you're hurting, but I am glad you're starting to see it. Not all bridges need to be burned. Some just need new architects. The parents? Still quiet? Still distant? And I didn't care. That winter, I hosted my own Christmas. No drama, no forced smiles, no curated social media photos. Just friends, chosen family, people who mattered because they showed up, not because they were expected to. We cooked, we laughed, we watched snow drift outside my wide windows. And for the first time, I didn't check my phone for obligatory messages. Because there were none coming. And that was exactly the point. I realized then that family isn't defined by blood or tradition. Family is defined by respect, by presence, by reciprocity. I didn't miss the version of my family I'd imagined. I missed the idea of them. And grieving that idea, finally, freed me. Foundry grew quietly but steadily. I mentored, built, and guided others who had no spotlight, and it became bigger than I could have imagined. Meanwhile, Lauren's curated world slowly unraveled. Her influence in the nonprofit diminished. Her social media persona continued, polished as ever, but no one could replicate the impact of what had been quietly built without her. And I realized the ultimate victory wasn't humiliation. It wasn't public exposure. It was soaring in silence, while they stayed small in their own illusions. Christmas morning arrived again. I sipped coffee in front of my fireplace, now truly mine. A message buzzed. From Sean. No family drama this year, just peace. Hope you found yours too. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I meant it. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reclamation, reclaiming space, reclaiming respect, reclaiming peace. And I had.